Hello and welcome everybody to another episode of r/ProRevenge. If you're new here and you like what you see, make sure to subscribe with notifications turned on. That way you can stay up to date with all the latest and the greatest. As always, my name's Ryan, the official host here on the channel, and I look forward to bringing you guys today's top story. New manager makes working stressful. Enjoy working alone with no staff. Hello again, Reddit. I've been reading these stories a lot, and while I did post a story about my great-grandfather a while back because I recently heard it from my mother and grandmother, a new story that I had almost forgotten about came flooding back to me recently. The main reason I'm remembering this is because of a recent phone call that I took in my current job. This is a long story with some backstory, so bear with me. This story happened over 20 years ago during the late 90s. I was 17 and had just recently gotten a job as a dishwasher at a local summer camp. This was a large camp that was run by a corporation. I won't say the name of the corporation, but there's a very famous song named after them. I had been to this summer camp as a kid, so I knew the layout of the camp. My job started up on the first week of summer, mid-June, so the kids were already there. I had my interview with the acting kitchen manager, who we'll call Susan. The original manager had just recently left the company and put Susan in charge. They didn't seem to bother Susan as she was eyeing for the kitchen manager job that had recently opened. Susan was a sweetheart. She was nice and helped me out with everything. I also interviewed with Bob, the camp director, as Susan did not have any hiring or firing power, as she was just an acting manager. The majority of the kitchen staff were also nice and helpful. I made friends with them during the time I worked there. Well, there was way more than these people. I remember there being around 10 to 15 kitchen staff members during the summer. I'm only going to bring up ones that are important to this story. There was Todd, an older guy who lived only a few blocks from the camp and didn't have a car, so he rode his bike in the morning, who was also a dishwasher. He was my supervisor, but also really nice. Dale, the head cook, had been there a long time and used to be a cook for the local middle school. Debbie, another cook. Ellie, a kitchen server, later girlfriend. And Boris, a Russian dishwasher who had a sponsorship with the camp as part of their Worldview program. There were 3 other dishwashers, Dumb, Dumber, and Dumbest, who all called the Dummies. But they're not part of the revenge, just that they were 3 dishwashers who were the worst. Nobody got along with them, and they couldn't get fired because Susan was acting manager. Now, due to the fact that we were located in a camp, the staff had full access to the facilities of the camp. This means that during my breaks or off work, if the camp was open, I was allowed to go to the swimming pool, go horseback riding, or even boating. As long as I didn't get in the way of the kids, who had a set schedule, it was full access. Susan told me this along with the director of the camp, Bob, during my interview. Bob was also a nice man, but also kind of weird. This is important later on. During the summer, this place is wonderful. I'd typically start working the lunch shift, then have an hour break between lunch and dinner. While I was required by state law for half-hour lunch, Susan gave me an hour, which she did for everyone. Typically, during this hour, I'd go swimming or play with the horses. One time, Bob and I went jetboarding around the lake, or Ellie and I would make out in the pool. Just typical stuff a teenage boy would do. Most everyone in the kitchen staff loved me, as I was a model employee and helped with just about everything. They loved that they had someone they could get help with, as the dummies would always mess up. In August, we got the news. The corporation had picked a new kitchen manager, and it was someone from outside the company. Susan was really upset. She had worked so hard for years to get this job, and the higher-ups picked someone outside the company. The newer manager was named Karen. The first time we met Karen, she gave a speech about how
new changes are coming, and we will now work as a team,
and was condescending at Susan's work. The first thing she did was do a massive cleanup to the large walk-in fridge. The strange thing was, she didn't have the staff to do it, but it was, later on, found out, her family cleaning it out. She also hired her husband, Dan, to be the assistant manager, pretty much forcing Susan out. During this time, the camp was starting to transition from a summer camp to an event camp, so the large staff would be cut in half. This wasn't a problem, normally, as people would be leaving for school or other seasonal jobs starting to open up. The first people she cut were the dummies. Everyone was happy on that, and it was the only good thing she did. But in the end, all that was left was Ellie, Dale, Todd, Debbie, Boris, a few others, and me. I asked Karen if I could work the weekend, as I had high school, and she agreed since everyone else wanted to keep me on staff. Karen then begins her terror. It only took a week, but it happened. Her fangs started to show, and the power got to her. Each person felt the wrath of her. She was one of those people who thinks their fart doesn't smell. She'd come in late, leave early, but yell at everyone for doing the same thing. Everyone had problems with her, but there were a few that I remember. Todd was starting to get written warnings about coming in late. Karen placed him on the morning shift, but he told her that he couldn't do the morning shift or he would be late as he doesn't have a car and bikes into work. As the camp is located in a rural area, it doesn't have streetlights and biking in the mornings is dangerous. This isn't a problem during the summer as the sun is up earlier, but during the fall and winter time it's not acceptable. She called him lazy for not having a car and it didn't matter, she needed him here. Dale, the head cook, was starting to get fed up with Karen, ordering too little of the food and the wrong food, having cheaper products and being forced to work with a broken stove. One time he asked her when the stove would be fixed and her response was,
Fix it yourself. You're a big boy.
So oftentimes we would run out of food for the night and had to make sandwiches for the people. Ellie got the worst of it. Since we were dating, I found out that she had an eating disorder a few years earlier. She was 2 years older than me and used to be anorexic. Karen kept calling her piggy and fat, and how she shouldn't eat all the food in the kitchen. She was upset and crying the whole time when this happened. I confronted Karen about it and she said,
She shouldn't be a sheltered college brat and should just grow up. If she has a problem, she should talk to me, not you.
I also felt the wrath of her too. She would change my schedule around randomly after posting it. On Friday, we would get our schedules for the week. I typically worked Friday night, Saturday, and Sunday because of the high school. During the week, she would change my schedule, so I was working on Friday night. She changed it to Wednesday night and then would call saying I missed Wednesday night. Unlucky for her, Dale had my number and called me whenever he found a schedule change. But it was getting old quickly. She would also tell me to do a job, then change what to do. For example, one time she told me to clean the oven, and when I was near finishing up on the job, she asks why I didn't clean the stove and gets mad when I said she told me to do the oven. Another example was when she would tell me to mop the floor and Boris would come over and help me out because he had nothing to do, and then get on me for Boris finishing my job, even though Boris spoke up and said that he asked her if she could help me, and she said yes. Another example was that she cut my break from an hour to a half hour, not allowing me to use the facilities during my break, since I was
only on break to eat, not play.
After a few weeks of this, late September, I went to Bob about her and told him everything about what she was doing to us. I found out from Bob that Dale also went to him earlier that week and the same thing. However, having the spine of a jellyfish, he said, I'll talk with Karen. Then later, Karen starts getting on us for going to Bob and not her, saying,
If you have a problem with me, you come to me, not Bob.
This was the last straw for us, so I talked with the rest of the kitchen staff and we decided that she needed to leave. During one of my breaks that she wasn't in the office that day, we were still trying to think of a way to get rid of her. I was eating my dinner in her office. The manager's office was the only one with AC in it and it was a hot day. We all had permission to be in her office as it has the keys to the large fridge, tools, and the private restroom and whatnot. I'm eating dinner with Ellie when Boris comes looking for a pen. He was trying to fill out information so he could go home to Russia. I don't remember what, just that he was planning on leaving in 3 weeks, and sits down at her desk. He's opening up the desk to find a black pen when he finds a check. It was a paycheck to one of the dummies, who left a month earlier. It was his final paycheck. Highly illegal to withhold a paycheck. Boris showed us the paycheck, and then he started to look at the computer that was on her desk. While Karen was a jerk, she was also stupid and left everything unlocked. There he saw the orders. She was ordering things that we never got into the kitchen or ordering extra stuff. It turns out that she was ordering more food than we thought, stealing the food and using it for her own personal use. I told Boris that he was looking through her personal files and he said, "What are they going to do? Deport me?" We also found out that Bob was getting a kickback from the extra food that Karen was getting to keep quiet. So it explained why Bob had the spine of a jellyfish towards Karen. Boris printed out the information and held on to it. This is important for later on. The three of us told Dale about it and wanted to confront Karen, but Debbie pointed out that she would just deny it and Bob would cover it up. We thought about corporate, but we had no connections to corporate, and Susan had left the company, who used to have the connections. It then dawned on us. In about 3 weeks, mid-October, corporate was going to be having a retreat using the camp. All the bigwigs and higher-ups were going to be there, and we were all scheduled to be at work that day because there was going to be a huge feast for dinner, while lunch corporate was going to have grilled burgers and hot dogs. I remember that corporate brought in an outside vendor for the grilled stuff since they were preparing a big feast. Karen was also going to be there to impress the bigwigs. We decided to act on that day, but we knew what to do beforehand. It was also going to be Boris's last day as he was leaving for Russia that night. So on the day of the feast, all of us showed up around noon. The dinner feast wasn't going to be until around 5 p.m., so we had plenty of time to prepare, or at least that's what Karen thought. We got there and just sat down around the kitchen and did no work. We locked the freezer with a different lock. It was only locked with a normal deadbolt lock you can get at the hardware store. The janitor wasn't going to be in until later the evening, thanks to Dale telling him about the plan and not to answer the phone so he couldn't use his tools to break the fridge. So we waited. Karen didn't get in until 4 p.m. with her husband. She looked as if she was ready for a major interview, and that's when she saw all of us standing around. The stove wasn't on and cold. The fridge was locked and we were just sitting around. Karen starts to yell at us and talk about how today is important for her and how she would have her heads for this. So Dale comes up to her and says, "We quit." Karen went full on deer in headlights, and her mouth was so wide open that you could throw peanuts into it. All of us walked out on her, into our cars, and drove away before she could get a word in. We decided to just quit. After we quit, all of us started to look for jobs. While some had security land up, since we knew this was going to happen, but knew that a major shakeup like this would grab the attention of the bigwigs. I found out a month later when I got a call from Susan, the original acting manager before Karen, asking me if I wanted my old job back. It turns out that Karen called Bob and said her whole kitchen staff just left and they needed to tell the bigwigs that the feast was going to be canceled. She couldn't get into the fridge with all the food since her keys didn't work and no one was picking up to help her. She tried to call the others that left or were fired, but she was so toxic that no one wanted to work with her. The bigwigs were not happy. They went right to the kitchen to find out what was wrong and saw that nobody but Bob, Karen, and Dan were there, without any food cooking. Boris walks in and Karen starts yelling at him, saying how could he do this to her? Boris then hands the bigwigs the printed information he got from Karen's computer earlier and had made copies of it. Gave it to everyone in the room. Boris told me through email that he wasn't sure who was in charge, so he just gave everyone in the room the information since he figured one of them had to be a head guy. Then got into a taxi and went back to Russia. Corporate started an investigation as soon as that happened. Bob, Karen, and Dan were fired almost right on the spot, and not only did they find out about the withholding checks and backdoor deals with Bob, but also that Bob was stealing money from the camp to support a drug habit. Karen and Bob were arrested for fraud and most likely other things. It's been over 20 years and I don't remember everything, but that one just stuck out to me. Pretty much the whole camp had a shakeup. Susan took over as the manager, got the job she wanted with a pay raise. She did leave after they gave the job to Karen, but her new job wasn't working out. And about half of the other staff came back after that. I did come back too, and during the 2 months I was out of work, my parents were helping me out with bills. They forced me to pay for my own car insurance and gas. My grades were never the best in high school, and while this was happening, I came back, but only for a month, since by that point it was in the middle of winter and it was costing me more in gas to get to work than work was paying me. Dale came back to the job along with Debbie, but Ellie and I broke up. It was a summer love anyway. As she moved away for college, Todd never came back and works at a local liquor store, or at least I saw him there. I haven't been in that store in about 7 years. So what happened now in my current job that caused me to remember this? Well, I got a call from Dan about a month ago, recently wanting to do some work for him. However, he lived in another state that we aren't licensed to do work for, and that was pretty much the end of the conversation. I decided to Google search her name, but didn't find much information except some court records about the original case from years ago. Dan and Karen do not appear to have any social media pages or anything that I can find. I honestly just don't care anymore, as it's been over 20 years since it happened, and I'm much happier at my current job. TLDR, summer kitchen job at summer camp gets new manager and starts causing problems. Whole staff quits during an event and gives higher-ups information about fraud with manager and director. Just to be a bit more clear, I am 100% sure Dan had no clue who I was when he called. I only typically give out my first name on the phone, unless someone asks for my last name. Both Karen and Dan's last names were very unusual, and something I remember from all those years ago due to the unusual name. Garage manager tries to screw over a loyal customer. Customer gets revenge. Garage owner is awesome. Sorry for mobile format and bad English. I am American. Mechanics are notorious for not maintaining their personal daily drivers, but the significant other's car will always be well maintained because you don't want a broken car and an angry wife. Molvo, the Volvo, may be a little old, 02 S60 Turbo, but it gets all of its service done at one garage and has at least 60,000 miles all on time with the owner's manual. On the last oil change, the cartridge filter cap was tightened too much, fusing the cap to the block with the force of 1,000 gods. The service writer tried to sell me a new cap and repair, has to air chisel the plastic cap off. I laughed and asked to talk to the GM, or owner. I told the GM that this shop has done all of my services for the last 60k miles. If this was improperly installed, the fault is on them. Of course, the manager still tried to say it wasn't their fault and refused to fix the problem. This got me mad. I said, "It's obvious that you're not going to make this right," and walked over to the wall with the business license, Bureau of Auto Repair cart, etc. I started writing all of the business information down on the back of the estimate sheet I was given by the service writer so I can contact the owner. While doing this, I told GM to get my car out of the bay and give me my keys. The tech had drained the oil but refilled it to proper level before letting the vehicle leave the shop. The manager then walks up with my keys and a bill for 15 minutes of shop time and 5 quarts of oil. I looked at him and said, "Really? You want to be like this?" And the GM replied, "Yeah, I didn't charge the 1 hour minimum, so feel lucky." What an a-hole. So, Molvo the Volvo and I go to the dealership. I explain what happened at my regular garage and tell the Volvo mechanic to fix it proper. About $400. Now that Molvo's fixed, I get to work. I did some digging and found the owner of the shop's phone number. I explained to the owner that I would have no choice but to bring a lawsuit against the company to reclaim damages and legal fees because the GM was not willing to fix a problem that was caused by a tech at the shop. After the legal fees and costs, this $400 fix could cost the shop thousands in court. The owner cooled me down and was on my side. I meet him for lunch the next day and walk him through what happened. He apologized for the problem and we went to the garage after lunch. The moment we walked in, the GM walks up and greets the owner. "Hey boss, how Gets cut off by the owner saying, "I'm not your boss anymore. Go into the office, wait, and I will tell you why." The owner writes me a check for the dealership bill, refunds me the repair bill, and hands me a ticket book full of free oil changes, a transmission flush, tire rotations, etc. He says, "I've been in this business in this town for 40 years. I take great pride in my company's reputation and hope you keep doing business with us." I reply, "You got my business for life because you made things right." On my way out, I stop and arrange a service appointment for my other car and can hear the owner ripping into the GM. GM walks out of the office and as he passes me, mumbles something I couldn't hear. The next time I brought a car in, the service writer told me that the GM had to move away from this town because nobody would hire him. Local business owners here talk a lot and the shop owners let everyone know that GM was dishonest to customers and could possibly damage their reputation with his not my fault attitude. Edit. I chopped down the story a bit because I didn't want to write a novel. Let me fill some stuff in. I was in automotive tech for almost 10 years, but recently changed to a less physically demanding job. I know my way around a car and keep my old beater alive with duct tape and hope. Molvo the Volvo is maintained by the garage, wife's orders. It ensures that maintenance is done on time and keeps me from sleeping on the couch. I also know my shop liabilities and how the process works to legally recover money from a bad repair job, since I've helped customers with cars that other mechanics have messed up. Motivation for GM to not eat the repair was commission pay for services. If the shop messes up, it comes out of the bonus pay. That, and he's a douchebag. I admit I was very unprofessional with the owner on the phone, should have calmed down more before calling. I threatened legal action because if the GM told me to piss off, I expected the same from the owner. Owner told me GM was a problem employee but wouldn't go into it, so he already had 2 strikes. The owner met me for lunch because if I caused a scene, it wouldn't be at his shop. That and around lunch, half the cops in the area are in or near the place. Owner is a smart guy. I have apologized to him a few times already for how I acted. I was mad, but that is no excuse. If anyone in this story is a hero, it's the shop owner. And with that, my friends, we've reached the end of today's video. Did you like it? Be sure to leave a like and also make sure you're subscribed with notifications turned on. That way you can stay up to date with all the latest and the greatest. As always, my name's Ryan, the official host here on Reddit Voice, and I look forward to seeing you guys in the next video.